Woods. It's either a map that people love or they 100% hate with the passion of 1,000 suns. With how much space there is on the map, it is quite easy to just end up wandering around until you either end up getting shot in the side of the head by someone that you never saw, or end up dying because you don't know where you're at and you end up stepping on a landmine. You can always tell when someone newer is on this map. You could just be minding your business and then off in the distance you hear the sound of a Timmy being sent back to lobby due to the landmines located at USEC. For me, Woods is one of the first maps I learned. I saw how much loot there was available and knew it was going to be my first money making map. In this video I'm going to cover spawns, the dangerous areas of the map, and how to move around without getting your wig blown back. By the time this video is over, you're going to look at Woods in a brand new light and go from being lost and afraid to an apex predator. Let's hop into it. If you remember from my last video, I spoke about how I like to break down the maps into 3 types. For me, Tarkov maps only fall into a few categories. They are either task focused, great for making money and getting loot, or just straight PvP maps. While you can do all 3 on every map, some maps just outshine others in certain areas. In my last video, Customs was a great task and PvP map. This time, Woods is a great task and money making map. With the size of the map being larger and more open, that means there are a lot more paths, that way you can move around the map more safely. And whenever you're able to move around a map easier, that makes completing tasks much safer and quicker as well. There are a ton of different ways that you can traverse this map, and I'll go over my preferred rotation paths a little later in the video. For Woods, if you're here and you're not tasking, this map is a gold mine for new players to get loot. Before Streets was a thing, Woods was my go-to money making map. Not only are there a ton of the ground and Jaeger caches, there's a bunch of loose loot you can find scattered across the map, with even the possibility of finding the Ledics. Just look at this picture of Woods. These are only the ground caches, duffel bags, and loot crates. There is so much loot. You can bring your biggest chest rig and backpack from your stash and you will still walk past the loot on Woods. Let me know if you want me to make a video going over my loot pathing on Woods. When I was starting out, especially solo, this map single-handedly made me millions. If you want to see a video, just let me know down in the comments. When it comes to Woods, almost all of the spawns are around key parts of the map. Because of this, most people loot whatever they spawn next to before heading on to the rest of the map. Just don't bait yourself. A lot of spawns need a minute or 2 before they arrive at the location, so it might sound familiar that you clear the area as you go in, only to be walked up on from a spawn across the way that needed like a minute or 2 to rotate in. Because of the way the locations are laid out on this map, wherever you spawn, assume the spawn that's across from your nearest map location is active. Since most of the time when I spawn, the first thing I do is look for my neighbor spawns to carelessly rotate past my kill window. A lot of people are hesitant on this map and all the trees make them paranoid that they're going to get shot from an angle they don't know. Taking an extra few minutes to weed out your unwanted neighbors can make looting these areas a breeze. The major locations on the map are pretty far away from each other, so if you can take out your closest threats, you're mostly free to hit whatever location you are near. Just always assume someone is heading to that location, it might just take them a while to get there. If you spawn down on the bottom of the map, near Ruav all the way to Railroad, these all funnel towards Medical Camp. With the Ruav spawn, you can be inside the camp almost instantly. The further spawns near Railway can take 2 to 5 minutes to make it there depending on how timid they play. If you get the close spawn and you just run in and start looting, typically around halfway looted you're going to end up with an engagement. Being prepared and knowing when to look certain directions and when to expect others makes winning engagements a lot easier. Up on the top right of the map near Bridge Extract, I like to think of the town and the sawmill as like one big area. If you spawn on one side of the town or the sawmill, then it's safe to bet that at the other side of the location they have a spawn as well. If you spawn out in the field between town and sawmill, then there's a high chance that there's a spawn on the other side of town or just past, and on the other side of sawmill, leaving you with the possibility of being sandwiched. This top area of the map is very easily the most scoped out and canvassed area on the map. Because everything's down this one major street, there are a couple of sight lines that give you great vantage points, like up on the rocks and on the hill. Even on the backside by Bridge Extract, a lot of people will lay down there and take shots whoever runs through the town. The vehicle extract is right behind the location, so many players will look to kill the closest spawn, hit the town, or maybe even the sawmill depending on their bags, and then take vehicle extract. The interesting thing about this part of the map is it can either be completely dead or instant PvP. If you want to loot here early in raid and it's one of your spawns, just take your time. Like I said, it's either completely dead or instant PvP. If you think somebody's there and you just have a feeling, even if that means waiting until you're sure, just take your time. It's true on every map, but I feel like it's the most true in this area, and there's always another one. If you're scoping the area, try to avoid using the most obvious of the angles. These angles are more for like quick glances. I wouldn't stay here for an extended period of time. Another tip that I have for this area is at the start of a raid, get eyes on the area that you suspect a PMC is going to rotate through. You want to get there before they do. A lot of players will set up on one of these angles and wait to see if their closest spawn will move into loot. So if you get here quick and if they do show up, then you have an advantage for already being set up and being ready. If no one shows up, then it's free loot to fill your bags and then dip with vehicle. Either way though, if you decide to hit this location early, either limit your time spent on the road in the middle of town or out in the open, or just play slow and make sure you're alone before moving around. At the top middle of the map, you have a few spawns that are located around the abandoned village. I think it's fair to pull the scav bunker spawns into this spawn area as well. Because this spawn has spawns available on opposite sides of the lake, if both teams move in to loot, then there will definitely be an engagement. It might not seem like it, but this area has great loot spawns. This area also has some tall foliage, so it can be difficult to see players and scavs, so be careful. Alright, now for the best part of the map, USEC. Alright, so there's quite a bit going on over here for somebody that's new. This is the military camp located on the top left on the hill. It has some of the best loot on the map. It is also surrounded by landmines. I will also go over how to safely move around this area a little bit later in the video. This area has weapon part spawns, crate spawns, medical spawns, freaking LEDX spawn. Because of this, always be ready for the other spawn that's coming from the other side of camp. You are not alone. The last spawn area is down on the bottom left by outskirts. Now I know I'm not alone when I say this. I hate spawning down here. Nikita loves spawning me facing outside of the map with no frame of reference, leaving me like 100% lost for a minute. There's also not really a big area around here to loot. Spawns either head towards ZB14 or attachment house before heading into the rest of the map. You can still use the same principles here for spawn. If you spawn over here at outskirts, then you probably have a ZB neighbor and probably over by attachment. If you spawn at ZB, then you probably have across the road on the hills or probably over by Scav House. Another thing is, even though the map is larger and the spawns are kind of spread out, once these spawns have kind of gone into these major locations and then they've rotated out, most players kind of use the same pathing, so it's kind of predictable. Becoming good with where to expect company will lead to a lot more kills. One thing that is different about Woods than other maps is that a lot of players will only come to hunt Sturman, and if he's not alive, they just straight dip. So Woods kind of gives off the feeling that most of the major exterior locations are busy and dangerous early, but almost empty later on in the raid. Heading back to the medical camp, this area will have its peak activity in like the first 2 to 10 minutes of raid, but it's also one of those locations that people will just kind of pop up and see if it's unlooted. Maybe they find a PMC body or two. And now that I think about it, it kind of makes sense. With Tarkov, when people are a little bit more timid and not really confident with their ability in PvP, and then you pair that on a map like Maps where people just get lost and don't really know where to head or what to do or where they're getting shot from or where to head next or what to do to get behind cover or what's safe, and they just get overwhelmed. A lot of times they avoid these locations altogether and only rush in if they have quests. The PvP on Woods is also a little different. It favors patience and good rotating, so many people just choose to avoid Woods altogether. Sawmill is pretty safe to loot after the first 5 minutes. Fighting's either going to happen here or it's not. Town, on the other hand, can be tricky. Town, I feel like recently this wipe has become more active with the vehicle extract being used more often than other wipes. However, a lot of times there are a lot of raids that I'm in that the spawns here are terrified to head towards town and will leave it unlooted almost all raid. After about 10 minutes, whatever was going to play out here has played out, and it's pretty much a normal location from the rest of the raid. Because people know that there's a chance that people were too scared to loot here, this is one of those locations where player scavs will always rotate through just to see if it was looted. So if you're here after about 10 minutes into raid, make your visit here quick, get what you need, and get out so you don't get rolled over by player scavs. Abandoned Village is mostly a rotation area for most people. It has some good spawns that are very easy to hit, but I can cover those in the loot video. I wouldn't exactly put a big skull and crossbones on this area and just mark it with death, but I do want to talk about that tall foliage again. It is absolutely awful. I think it's the tallest grass in Tarkov. I mean, some of the grass is PMC height, making it very difficult to see. Scavs also spawn in this location and move along the backside of the hill where the tall grass is. If I'm rotating through this area, and I hear a scav ahead of me and I know that it's in or near the tall grass, I'll just adjust my course and go around it and avoid the situation. Last thing you want is to be killed by an AI scav you couldn't see that had X-ray bush vision. Your biggest risk in abandoned village or scav bunker is just by rotating into another team. At USEC is probably the most guarantee that you're going to have a fight every raid. However, unless you were one of the spawns that were located nearby, most of the action and loot are probably gone. Since this is a high priority area, the nearby spawns typically fight, loot, and dip out of this area pretty quick. While it can be a very dangerous location, people know that it's looted early, so other than the opening like 5 to 10 minutes, you should be able to move through here pretty easily. Closing out our danger area of map is down here on Outskirts. Outskirts is one of the major extractions for the map, however I do feel like this side of the map gets all of its action early. There isn't really a large location to hit over here like I was saying, so all the loot is pretty much a ZB14 or attachment house. If you run to ZB14, be careful with this area because this is kind of one of those areas that somebody might run up onto anywhere from 30 seconds into raid all the way up to like kind of 5 minutes into raid, especially because you have to go down into the bunker. If you're a two-man, if one of you can wait outside, that's great. You can cover the entrance. If you're solo and you are by yourself, loot it fast, get in, get out. And if you're rotating to this area and you hear somebody inside, they have to come out. The other area is attachment house. It's pretty quick to hit this area. You can get in and out of this area in like 45 seconds. If you're going to go here, go fast. One major point that I would like to make for the entire map is this map gives people anxiety. And even if their spawn has them set up to hit a certain location and that's typically where you would loot, a lot of people are too scared to go there. So while these are the times for all the different parts of the map where they get the most action, don't be afraid 15, 20, 25 minutes to check attachment house, to check USEC, to check the abandoned village, the scav town. Just pop in, kind of see if it's been hit. If it has, leave promptly. If it hasn't, then carefully loot the area. Now I don't remember if it was the first or second LEDX I found, but when I found it, this area had already been looted. So that means somebody cleared the table and missed the LEDX. So I always check this area regardless. Even with the size of woods being as big as it is, a lot of players unknowingly walk the same paths, making their movements predictable. Now I don't mean to say that I move around the map in some magical way that nobody else does. I don't necessarily levitate anywhere. It's actually quite the opposite. I know the most common traveled paths that everyone takes, so when I move around the map, I stay close to these traveled paths, but just off to the side enough that I won't be caught sleeping. So here's a map of woods that I took the liberty of drawing what I would consider the most traveled pathing across the map. Once medical camp is hit, most parties that leave do so heading along the trees towards lumber. There's not much area right here, so you have to be careful with all the hills and changing the elevations and bushes. A lot of people will camp this area knowing that you got to rotate through here, so be careful. Near the base of the large mountain, a lot of players walking this area do so by hugging the wall and use it as a guide. So be careful from people set up behind the trees overlooking this area and up on the rocks. Moving along the backside along the paths cut through the mountain tend to be the lightly traveled areas, making it a lot easier to make it around. When moving around on the top side of the map, for most, the easiest path is following along the river edge. Rather than walking on the side of the street next to the water, I'll cross over the road and I'll be on the inside of the tree line so that I have more cover. I say it again, but make sure you watch out for all the players and scavs in this area along with the tall grass. A lot of times I'll clear this area from the other side of the lake that's located there. A lot of people don't know when and where to scan, so I'm almost always seeing others before they see me. Players that leave USEC typically head down, meeting up with the rest of the map pathing through the middle, since if they spawned up there, all their locations are in the southern part of the map. There is a possibility that players leaving this location will actually head up towards Scav Bunker and head through the abandoned village looking for Scav kills. And then after abandoned village, you can head over and move to Scav Town. After Scav Town, you just hit vehicle extract and you're out. Players that are moving through the middle of the map tend to float just above lumber on the other side of Sniper Rock. There's this little valley that leads all the way towards the rocks over by Scav Checkpoint. This area has so many angles that can see it from both ends or from high ground. Rather than walking through this valley, I like to travel up a little higher along the backside with the rock and hills, giving me more cover and an easier vantage point. Once players have cleared the middle of the map and are heading towards extract, if they're heading towards outskirts, usually they like to hug the inside part of the wall by ZB14. For me, I like to walk on the other side of the wall near the landmines and push along the edge. Usually by the time I make it to this area of the map, I'm usually full of loot and I want to get out or I've completed my task. One of the good things I would say about woods is that I would consider the extracts on the safer side. No matter what side of the map you spawn on, all of the extractions other than vehicle extract are located on the south side of the map. All extracts have multiple paths that you can take to get to them, as well as the benefit of not being camped very often. Outskirts is the main extraction on the left side of the map, with ZB14 being a sometimes active extraction that you need a key for. ZB14 extract's biggest risks are making sure that it's clear before you head down and that someone's not camping inside. Outskirts is a wide extract located outside that you can reach from either side. You can find this extract by heading south of the lake along the landmines, or behind Scav House heading up towards the lake if you follow along the landmines. Not very many camping risks here. On the right side of the map, your main extraction is going to be UN roadblock or northern UN roadblock. I prefer to hit northern just because it's usually the closest pathing based on where I'm at. UN roadblock is still a good extract, it's just literally in the corner of the map. The last two extracts are Ruev at the bottom middle of the map on the right side of the lake located by the hill. You can tell it's active by the flare and smoke grenade going off. And there's also ZB16, which is located in the woods sort of by the plane crash off to the right. Both of these extracts are good to use, but they are both randomly active, so you don't know if they're going to be available until you go to check. I hope that after this video you feel a little bit more knowledgeable about woods. For new players, there's a lot of unknowns with this map. It can leave you with the feeling of being too scared to want to push because you have the fear you're being watched. Practice learning where to expect other teams so you can hit your locations and make it out with more dog tags. Remember, there is a metric load of loot on this map, and it's not hard to leave with the loot in your bags feeling like Scrooge McDuck. If you would like to see a wood loot guide that I've used over the last few wipes that has single-handedly kept my stash alive, then let me know down in the comments. Special shout out to everyone that's been commenting on my first few videos. Thank you for the support and all the subs. I hear your calls for other maps and don't worry, they are coming. I only chose to cover wood second due to the fact that it's a pretty early task map. I currently stopped streaming and I have been using that time to work on and get out more videos to you guys. The main point of this is to grow, and if in the future, if we grow enough and you guys would like to see me start streaming again, then that's definitely in the cards. But either way, I hope this video helped you guys get to enjoy woods a little bit more. If I missed anything, please let me know down in the comments. That is it for this video, and I'll see you in raid.